In 2055, a technology was invented that could change the world or destroy it. Someone named Charles Hutton used it for profit. From the first frames, we see the dense jungle of the Jurassic period. An artificial path is laid through the thicket, imitating a stream. On the path appears a group of people dressed in spacesuits and equipped with firearms. The man walking ahead is extremely dissatisfied with the fact that he has not met anyone alive so far. The guide Travis warns the entire group that no one shoots until Travis himself fires. Suddenly, the ground shakes with giant footsteps. A huge Allosaurus comes out at the group through the forest. The clients stop doubting the event. Whereas before they couldn't find evidence around that their walk wasn't staged somewhere out of town, they are now convinced that time travel works. The dinosaur comes closer, and the client's nerves begin to give way, but Travis takes his time firing. When the giant enters the swamp at a distance of about 10 meters from the men, the guide commands fire, and the lizard starts firing from all barrels. A few seconds and the dinosaur falls, slowly sinking into the swamp slurry. Only then the customer exhales with relief and takes a breath. From overexertion, his legs are shaking, and he is forced to pile on his daughter, who is standing next to him. After the safari is over, the customers return to our time. The head of the Time Safari Corporation, Charles Hutton, congratulates the clients on the greatest adventure of their lives and pours champagne into glasses. And only Dr. Travis Ryan is not inclined to waste time at the banquet. He is in the laboratory preparing a report on the past event, while the dissatisfied inspector is making notes in his notebook, examining every machine in the room. Travis is talking to Temmie's artificial intelligence when he is interrupted by Charles showing up. The company owner reminds Travis that he's contractually obligated to communicate with his clients, especially if they call him to join their celebration. In this case, Travis will be given access to all the equipment so that he can continue to study dinosaurs at his pleasure. The man is forced to go to the banquet. He presents the clients with a tape of their journey and greases the chief among them by claiming that according to the footage, it was he who killed the dinosaur. At that moment, Charles sees a girl, Sonia Rand, the inventor of the time machine, approaching them determinedly. He immediately calls for security to stop her, but doesn't have time. The girl opens a bottle of red shamanic and sprays everyone present with it. The red spray mimics blood quite successfully, and the girl starts yelling that they shouldn't kill dinosaurs, as it's very dangerous and has the potential to change the future. The guards drag the intruder away under their arms, but Travis catches up with them and asks them to let the girl go. He begins to question her about what exactly she means, but Sonia is in no mood to communicate with the one who turned her invention into an attraction for the rich. Nevertheless, she tells Travis that she signed a contract saying that the company would own all of her inventions. Charles had the controlling interest, and after she signed a non-disclosure paper, Charles was able to erase all mention of Sonia, completely appropriating the time machine. Travis calls the girl over to explain his interest in the case. He reminds her that the last animal in their time died 28 years ago. Now there are no animals on the planet, and there isn't even their DNA for scientists to be able to clone them again. Travis has come up with a technology that can capture fragments of animal DNA in the past. Since the animal itself, as well as any organics from the past, cannot be brought to our time, the information obtained will help accumulate enough data over time so that a living individual can be cloned. Sonia is forced to admit that she respects this impulse as a scientist, but reminds that changes in the past can affect the entire future. Travis objects to the girl. He tells her that the Allosaurus they killed would have gotten stuck in that swamp anyway and died 5 minutes afterward from a volcanic eruption. Next, we see the preparation of equipment for the next time jump. One of the lab employees glared at a female coworker and dropped a liquid nitrogen ammo magazine. He, of course, quickly picked it up and put it back in place, but failed to see that the mechanism was damaged from the fall. Droplets of liquid nitrogen begin to drip down and fall onto the automatic rifle Travis is using on the trip. The hissing and smoke on the metal of the weapon shows us that the automaton is becoming inoperable. In the evening, when Travis returns to his home, he sees there the client's daughter, who sits naked in his chair and sips from a tall glass. The man does not kick the girl out. Later, coming out of the bedroom, he confesses to her that all the flowers in his apartment do not survive. Saying this, he puts a pot with a stunted plant in the sun, hoping that at least one will survive. That same afternoon, while Travis gets to work, Charles Hutton is already processing the next couple of potential clients who have paid twice as much to avoid waiting 6 years in line. He gets them to sign papers relieving the company of all liability and immediately brainwashes them with all the advantages they'll encounter on the trip. The clients are introduced to the escort group, which includes Travis. After that, they are introduced to the rules. The second rule is that you can't leave anything there. The third rule is you can't take anything with you. And the first and most important rule is you can't change anything in the past. Otherwise, you can affect the future. For example, you stepped on a bee. It could not pollinate a flower. It could not give seeds, and the plant could not grow. The animal didn't have enough food because of this, and it died without allowing a new species to develop. So evolution can take a different path of development, and all because of one bee. So the group is instructed and equipped. Everyone takes a seat in the rig, and within seconds they are on the jungle trail. Travis clocks in at 5 minutes, after which they must return to their own time, as this is where the volcano will begin to erupt. Everything repeats according to the planned scenario. The customers are again reminded that it is strictly forbidden to leave the trail. After a while, everyone hears heavy footsteps. An Allosaurus is coming through the trees in their direction. Travis's gun must go off at the right moment, and with that shot, it unlocks the guns of the rest of the travelers. When the dinosaur is at the checkpoint, Travis pulls the trigger, but no shot rings out. What's more, the malfunction prevents the other guns from unlocking. From this point on, a real unplanned threat looms over the travelers. While the repairman tries to deal with Travis's gun, he tries to distract the lizard with his flashlight, leading it away from his clients further down the trail. His coworker Jenny begins to do the same. The dinosaur starts thrashing around. It can't decide who to eat first. Travis shouts to the clients to hide in the bushes, but they refuse to do anything on their own and freeze on the trail. At the last moment, when the Allosaurus is almost to Travis, the engineer throws him a repaired shotgun. Travis tosses the flashlight up, thus distracting the lizard, and when it looks up at the flying object, opening its neck, Travis fires the fatal shot. The lizard falls into the swamp almost exactly where he had planned and sinks into the mire. As for the flashlight, Jenny catches it moments before it falls, following the lizard into the swamp. The travelers catch their breath and return to our time before the eruption begins. As they walk off down the trail, one of them leaves a muddy boot print on the trail's mirrored surface, implying that someone did, after all, step off the trail. In our time, the customers are outraged and promise to sue Charles to the hilt. However, he's a tough guy and turns all the disadvantages into advantages. In the end, all the customers are happy. Returning home, Travis customarily exchanges a few words with the butler. He wonders how it is 20-degree heat in November. In the morning, Travis hears on the news that thousands of fish have been thrown into the lake, and the temperature has risen to 30 degrees. In addition, Travis sees his flower lushly blooming, and outside, a concrete wall is cracked by a lushly growing tree. However, the work routine continues, and already new customers are eager to kill the poor dinosaur. The equipment is switched on, a jump takes place, and now a path appears in the jungle, along which a group of thrill-seekers strides. They have, as always, 5 minutes. Travis and the engineer sense that something is missing, something has gone wrong. A little later, they are convinced of their fears. In the swamp in front of the trail lies a dead dinosaur. Travis looks at his watch, 4.5 minutes before the eruption. But the top of the nearest mountain suddenly explodes and the volcano awakens in all its terrible power. The group barely manages to run down the trail to the shifter. A second later, and casualties would have been unavoidable. Later in the meeting, Temmie, the time machine's control system, is asked why she made a mistake, to which she replies that there was no mistake. An inspector from the system control office shuts down the project until further notice and revokes all employee access. Charles is outraged. He fears he will go bankrupt while the officials deal with Temmie. He doesn't believe Travis, who claims that this emergency is caused by some kind of change that was made the last time he jumped into the past before. However, Travis knows a man who is certain of this. The scientist heads to the address in a cab. It is over 40 degrees hot outside. On a stretch of road, the asphalt bursts under the pressure of powerful roots, and Travis's cab almost falls into the fault. After climbing out, the man makes it to the right building on foot. He gets to Sonia's apartment and gets inside only by pretending to be a fertilizer delivery man. Travis admits to the girl that she was right. They did change something in the past, but he doesn't know how or what exactly. Sonia shows him the view from the window, and the man sees a transparent wave of air coming over the city. It's like an explosive force rolls over the houses, and Travis is literally thrown against the wall. It is a wave of time, after which the real reality looks different. Hearing a woman scream outside the door, Travis and Sonia hurry to open it, but behind the door they see the dead body of a woman hidden under a huge number of bugs. Hordes of insects have flooded the entire landing and rushed into the open apartment. Travis tries to wash them off with a water hose, but short-circuits the oxygen tanks. The man throws the hose and only manages to jump out the window with Sonia to avoid a powerful explosion. However, they do not crash. Their fall is softened by the crown of a giant tree that suddenly appeared at the foot of the skyscraper. Rising to their feet, the pair look around at the city before them. All the houses were entangled with lush vegetation. Nature had literally defeated human interference in the surrounding landscape, and the city was turning into an impenetrable jungle before their eyes. Sonia says that all the changes in the past will affect the future not at once, but in waves. First, it affected the first forms of life, plants. Then it will get more and more complicated until the deviation in evolution affects mankind. The only way is to jump back into the past and try to correct the situation. That is, you have to appear on the trail a moment before the whole group appears, turn it around, and get it back into the shifter. Then no one will be able to get off the trail, and no changes will occur. The inspector from the Time Displacement Control Office allows the Temi to be used again for this. The whole group isn't needed for this mission, only Travis is going to jump. He puts on a suit, straps on a camera to record everything that will happen around him, and heads for the shifter. A jump occurs, and Travis steps onto the trail, but he has to fall flat on his stomach to avoid being hit by the hooves of the riders. The Indians on horseback gallop across the prairie, and the scientist realizes that he is not where he had planned. After a moment, he saw what the tribe was galloping away from in such fear. It was the next time wave. Travis barely manages to jump back into the shifter and return to his own time, but the time wave doesn't care. It catches up with the scientists, and everything around them goes dark. There is no more electricity. The city around is overgrown with centuries-old trees. The jump failed, falling into the Cretaceous period, as according to Sonia, you can't jump the time wave. Starting the backup generator, the group turns on the recording to watch the journey of the last customers and perhaps see what caused the future to change. The video scrolls frame by frame, but no one ever notices anything suspicious. A little later, the engineer discovers that when the clients returned, the group was 1.3 grams heavier. This means that something was brought into our time upon return. Travis objects, as the biofilter would not have let any alien organics into our time. And then Charles has to admit that the biofilter was turned off because it was wasting so much energy, and there was no use for it, so it was an unjustified financial loss. After that, the scientists went to check clothes and things under ultraviolet light. When no traces were found, the conclusion was self-evident. Something should be searched on the things of customers. One of the clients, Mr. Eccles, begins to get a call while discussing what will have to be done when meeting the group if they manage to throw a person back in time. Sonia's confident that she can throw the traveler back in time through all the time waves. The person will get about a year before the group appears, and from there, it will be possible to throw the traveler directly to the group without fear of waves. By the way, the group on the trail decided not to deploy, as it would waste all the energy. Taking into account that the window to the future will be unstable, there will be no time to explain everything to them, because Travis will have no more than 15 to 20 seconds for everything. That's why it's necessary to come up with a plan before the jump. And the client could not be reached, so it was decided to go to him on foot. At the bottom, seeing instead of security guards, a trashed hallway and traces of blood on the floor, the scientists realized that behind the doors is a wild world, and the plants of the past are not the only thing that evolved 65 million years before today, which means that they may be waiting for those who over the years turned into dinosaurs. Armed with shotguns, the 5 scientists head out into the nighttime city. Travis, his childhood friend Jenny, a doctor, Sonia, and an engineer head to the park behind where Eccles lives. Various animal cries are heard everywhere, and huge reptilian footprints are common. But Travis is concerned that the dinosaur footprints have something of the primates in their shape as well. Sonia speculates that a couple more time waves, and already the humans themselves will have undergone significant changes. The group realizes that some predators are watching them from the bushes. The engineer's nerves are frayed and he leaps up, intending to go home, but the bundles of plants wrap themselves around his body and stick their thorns into him. They've all been removed, of course, but the poison has time to disperse through his blood. Travis and the doctor try to drag the engineer, but his legs are barely obeying him, and the snarling and cracking of branches are rapidly approaching. The group struggles to get to cover. At one point, the doctor lags a couple steps behind and is attacked by a monster. It's some sort of mixture of a monkey and a dinosaur. The creature drags the doctor into the woods. Travis rushes after it and somehow kills the monster by hitting it in the throat. He picks up the doctor and the men run back, followed by a pack of similar monsters. After reaching the rest of the group, Travis yells for everyone to run to the bridge. He also doesn't forget to say that the throat is the only weak spot, which is where you should shoot. However, running with the engineer doesn't work. The guy asks to leave him. He can cover the retreating men. Travis does not agree to leave the man, but the engineer asks him to bring everything back, then he will stay alive. These words affect the scientist, and he runs after the others to the bridge. Meanwhile, the engineer almost completely loses touch with reality. The poison acts inevitably, so the guy doesn't even notice how he is surrounded by dozens of monsters, which in a second rush at him and tear him to pieces. Meanwhile, the group reaches the fence of the park, with Eccles' house in front of them. The scientists watch as a father and son rush from the house to a nearby store in search of food, but in the store, the man and child are attacked by the same ape-like dinosaurs. Travis, who rushes to the rescue, kills one monster and drives the other away. Then they all return to the house. The house is fenced in and is a relatively safe zone. After convincing the occupants to let them into their territory, the scientists rush to Eccles' apartment. Finding the man, they question him, but he says he has not left the trail. Not believing his words, the scientists check his clothes and backpack with ultraviolet light, but find no trace. That leaves one last option, the second client, Mr. Middleton. They learn from Mr. Eccles that his wife kicked him out, so he's spending the night at the office. Having found out the address, the group realizes that they will not be able to reach the next wave on foot. However, Eccles says that they can borrow a car in the underground garage. So they do. After a while, the darkness of the city streets was already illuminated by the headlights of a traveling car. Having reached the skyscraper, Travis and the rest of the group make their way inside. As they go up floor by floor, they see thickets of poisonous spikes everywhere, as well as many corpses that have gone crazy from these spikes and shoot each other. Upon reaching the 32nd floor, they break into the brother-in-law's office and make their way into the spacious room. Middleton greets them with gunfire, thinking he's been infiltrated by looters. Travis realizes that the man is out of his mind. He is infected with thorns, so it is impossible to explain anything to him. As a result, Middleton puts a gun to his head and kills himself. Travis and Sonia find his belongings in the shoe he was wearing on safari. On the sole of the shoe, they see a crushed butterfly. That's what he brought back to the present day. By stepping on an insect that laid eggs, he trampled all evolution. Back downstairs to the car, everyone gets back in and drives out into the city. They begin to be chased by winged monsters that look more like a mixture of bats and pterodactyls. The creatures are large and strong. They easily tear the roof of the car with their claws and snatch the doctor out of the cabin. His body flies upwards and disappears into the night sky. At that moment, the entire surrounding area is hit by the next time wave, which scattered all the winged monsters, picked up the car and threw it into the building, flipping it over. When it's over, the people in the cabin climb out of the dismembered car. They are lucky that the building they flew into is a safari firm with their laboratory. But the lab is flooded with water, in which the scientists find a dead Charles. In a closet, they run into a time travel inspector who asks them to be quiet. Pointing his finger upstairs, he lets everyone know the reason why. Lighting up the ceiling with flashlights, the scientists see a pack of dinosaur monkeys hanging upside down from the ceiling like bats and sleeping. After quietly getting some parts to make the jump from another location, the scientists try to quietly leave the lab. The inspector refuses to come out of the closet and join the group. The man looks at the departing people and decides to go with them at the very last moment. However, it is too late, climbing out of the closet and shouting in a loud whisper to wait for him. He wakes up the monsters, which begin to fall from the ceiling and encircle the poor man from all sides. Later, the group hears screams and then the noise of the pack. The only option to get to the right building is to use the subway tunnels, but they turn out to be flooded by the swamp. Travis insists there is no other way. He jumps into the water and walks deep into the tunnel. The others follow him. No one in the group notices a huge snake-like body in the water behind them, which appears on the surface and dives again, heading for the aliens. Nevertheless, the group manages to get 2 stations ahead before their path is blocked by a derailed train. The scientists decide to go through it, but the door of the last carriage is closed. However, they are also unable to go back. The ceiling of the tunnel breaks under the weight of the water, and the tunnel begins to rapidly fill with water. The wagon in which the men are trapped is the only barrier between them and the flood. Travis says that it is necessary to break the window and wait until the wagon fills up. After that, there is a small chance that by swimming out, they will be able to find a ventilation shaft and escape through it. Jenny asks for a minute and tries to approach Travis, but at that moment, some monster breaks through the window and drags the girl away. The train car immediately fills with water. Sonia manages to swim out the open window, but Travis is not so lucky. He decides to meet the snake-like crocodile with a volley from a gun, but in the water the gun does not work, so the only weapon of the man is a knife. After stabbing it a couple of times into its toothy head, Travis was about to swim out the window after the girl. But the monster comes to his senses, wraps the man in rings like an anaconda, and pulls him up to his face, about to swallow his prey. At the last moment, the ceiling of the tunnel collapses even more. Huge blocks of concrete fall on the roof of the car. The already battered wagon deforms even more, crushing the monster's body beneath it. Travis frees himself from the rings, but he can't swim up. Good thing Sonia had the foresight to grab him and pull him to the surface. She has already found the entrance to the vent, so the surviving pair swim to the hatch they found. Once on the surface, they see the second lab building in front of them. Running onto the porch, they lock the door behind them as they see ape-like monsters already running after them. Travis notices that the creatures have become more intelligent. Sonia is sure that the next time wave will affect the humans already. They are lucky. The emergency generator comes back on without any problems. However, the monsters are already in the building. While Sonia prepares the equipment, Travis locks all the doors, preventing the creatures from breaking into the laboratory itself. In addition to the main mission, the man must figure out how, after fixing the situation, to let everyone know what danger they had to endure, because everyone will forget everything. And meanwhile, the company, as well as the installation itself, must be closed, so that the trouble will not happen again. He takes a seat in the shifter, and Sonia presses the start button just as the monsters burst into the lab and everyone is hit by the final time wave. After it, we see some kind of mollusk-like creature sitting in Sonia's girlfriend's place. Travis finds himself on the trail just as the group encounters the dinosaur, and the first Travis distracts the beast with a flashlight. At this point, the newly arrived Travis catches Jenny's attention. He yells at the woman to get everything on camera. He also yells that Charles turned off the biofilter, allowing the disaster to happen, and that she should give the disc with the video to Travis personally after the trip. He then catches up with one of the customers and stops him from stepping on a butterfly, and seconds later, it just disappears in front of a shocked Middleton. After the death of the Allosaurus, the entire group returns to their own time. The travelers are greeted by Charles, and a little later, Jenny calls Travis aside and gives him the tape of the trip. The girl tells him that the tape has a different Travis on it, so she asks the man to leave with the tape. She's sure the scientists will understand. A bewildered Travis, however, does as the girl asks him. Next, we see Travis heading determinedly to Sonia's house. He convinces the girl to let him in. The man holds out the tape to her and tells her that Sonia should definitely watch it. Everything on the tape, shooting, disaster, corruption. Basically, everything she warned everyone about. In response to a question about where Travis himself got the tape, the man replies that it was given to him by the man himself. Therefore, Travis now intends to quit. Hearing this, Sonia softens and offers her guest a cup of coffee. In the last shots, we are shown a panorama of the city. It is, as before, untouched by any destruction. Travis managed to bring everything back and fix the situation as well as to make the disaster remembered. Now all that's left is to close the project.